Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. I'm here today with a brand new release from Deep Blue. This is the Daynight PC T100 diver. And I'm a pretty big fan of this watch aesthetically. They've been producing these PC watches for a while, and PC just stands for polycarbonate, so for the sake of the video we'll just say a plastic case. But when they had been producing them originally, they used a quartz movement and had a wave pattern dial. I can move past the quartz movement, but the wave dial just didn't seem to suit the watch. It kind of deterred from the legibility in the daytime, and in general I don't think fit the aesthetic. This looks much more tough and rugged, and now having an automatic movement, I think this watch represents a pretty tremendous value as long as you pick one up pretty early. The only thing that I will say, you have to make sure that you're okay with having a large watch on your wrist. The website lists the case size at 45 millimeters. I've measured from 9 to 3 and 2 to 8, and I keep getting just over 46. Additionally, if you measure from 9 all the way to kind of the tip of the crown here, you're looking at 47.66. So it's really got a large footprint. Being plastic, it's very light on wrist, but visually, if you're not used to a watch that big, it can be a little bit jarring. So at 14 millimeters, the watch is pretty thick, but forgivably so. You know, I've seen many divers that are 15, 16, 17 and up. This being the polycarbonate case does mean that you do away with a lot of that heft and bulk that's usually associated with a watch of this size. I also wanted to touch on the crown because I think it's one of the more interesting aspects of the watch. At 7.5 millimeters, it is certainly well proportioned, not signed, pretty plain, but it is push-pull. You know, the watch is 200 meters and Deep Blue guarantees that. I did take the watch up for a pressure test, which it passed with flying colors. It's just a little bit odd to have a dive watch and be able to wind the movement in that most engaged position. The lug tip to lug tip is pretty wide at 51.33, but if you bend the strap in and go like spring bar to spring bar with the innermost point, that effective lug to lug is 50 millimeters, meaning that it is pretty comfortable on wrist, all things considered. The lug width is 22 millimeters, and this watch comes on a bunch of different straps. You can get it on rubber, you can have a bracelet sent with it, but I opted for the two-piece NATO. There's no taper. It's 22 millimeters all the way down until you get to the buckle, which jumps at 24.5. They did sign it with Deep Blue, and they also signed the other half of the strap as well on one of the keepers. Certainly a nice touch, although the quality of the strap overall isn't really that great. I would compare it to, you know, a $10, $12 NATO that you would pick up off of eBay, but at the price, you know, I think it absolutely makes sense. So as is the case with most plastic watches, the caseback is screwed in. You have a nice printed diver design as well as the Deep Blue branding, and then general specifications throughout the outside of the watch, the water resistance. This is the brand that makes the tubes that are used on the dial. Automatic movement, reference to the polycarbonate case, Sapphire crystal, and then Daynight, polycarbonate, and then T100. I did want to touch on T100. There's a measurement system for tritium used on watches, or really just in general on anything. And you'll see T25 and T100. This does not relate to the brightness of the glow. It is more measuring the amount of tritium gas used. T25 uses 25 or under millicuries. Anything 26 to 100 will be labeled as T100. Powering this watch is an NH35A. It's a Seiko movement. It is automatically wound through an oscillating rotor, but it does also offer hand winding. So with the crown all the way engaged, you're able to wind the movement, extending the power reserve. One click out will operate the date function, and then the second click out will allow you to set time. It is a hacking movement, so when you do go to set the time, the seconds hand will stop, so you'll be able to set time a little bit more precisely and keep track of the accuracy, which out of the box states -20 to +40 seconds a day. So as you might imagine, the glow from the tritium tubes is pretty vivid. Inside each one of these is a coating of zinc sulfide, and then it is filled with tritium gas and sealed. Creates this glowing effect for up to 25 years, and it doesn't depend on any external light source to have its glow. It's putting out the same amount of light whether it's the middle of the day or the middle of the night, and it makes these tremendous tools, especially when working in low light conditions. So here we are on my 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch wrist, and I will say it is so extremely light. It is certainly a watch that you will forget is there, but at the same time, the overall footprint and just visually, I think it's just a little bit too big for my tastes. If you're really into larger watches or have a bigger wrist though, this is just a killer value and I think super cool. So a couple other things to touch on. The sapphire crystal used does have some blue AR coating. It looks very nice and not out of place. You know, you'll see light reflecting off of the crystal, but never so that you lose sight of the hands. The hands, now that we're in close, are the one thing that I think could have been executed a little better. Having that minutes and seconds hand go all the way to that outermost track, I think would have really completed the aesthetic here. That said, it's a relatively small gripe for what is a pretty value-packed watch. And then I also wanted to comment on the bezel. It is 60 click, which I know isn't a lot of people's favorite. That said, this is one of the more rugged feeling bezels I've experienced. It takes a little bit of pressure to get it to turn, but as it clicks over, there is absolutely zero play. It feels locked in place and very secure, which I think fits the overall theme of the watch really well. So let's talk about the pricing really quick. There's an introductory rate for these watches that's still live today. It is $316 USD. It says that pricing runs out on November 1st, but I am filming on November 2nd and it's still up, so make sure you run over and pick one up if you're interested in these. Use the discount code DEEP and you'll get 40% off, meaning that this watch is $199 after shipping. I think that's a tremendous value. I honestly don't know of another watch that offers 200 meters of water resistance, tritium, an automatic movement, and an AR-coated sapphire in that price range. If you do know one, drop it in the comments. You know, I have blind spots too. I certainly want to make sure that I'm exploring the full range of things, but in my eyes, this represents a really strong value. The traditional pricing, when that discounted rate stops, is going to be $499.98. After the discount code, you'll still be able to pick this up for $300 USD, which I don't think is a bad deal. Just obviously not the same deal as picking it up for under $200. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps in YouTube's algorithm. Also consider subscribing. I put watch content out weekly at a minimum, and hope to see you in the next one.